Yeah.
Welcome to In the Now with Jim Swilley. This song came out last year, and man, they ran it in the ground and broke it off. But it's a great song. It's by Pharrell. It's called Happy. There's a line in there that I really like. It says, clap your hands if you believe that happiness is the truth. The theology I grew up with did not really allow for a lot of happiness here. We used to sing, everybody will be happy over there.
Yeah.
Everybody will be happy over there. We didn't put, as a matter of fact, if we were too happy here, that was suspect. We were supposed to be grave. I can remember I'd go to my grandparents' house, and if the kids were laughing too much, they were like, "Oh, the Bible speaks out against foolish jesting." You know, like the idea of hilarity smacked of iniquity. And the idea that it's not only okay to be happy, that it's a holy thing to be happy. Happiness is the truth. I know in my own life, I'm very happy, but I had to fight for my happiness, and I have to be protective over it. And I believe it's so important to be happy every day that I'm very defensive over my happiness. I can't let somebody take away that. You know what I mean? It's like I can't empower somebody to affect my day. I'm like, no, it's too important for me to be happy. Life is going by really, really fast, and every time we make a rotation around the sun, it just seems to go faster and faster and faster. So you want to seize the day. We've been recording these all day long, and I've just enjoyed the energy picking up from all of you. It makes me happy to be with you. It's not, there's some people you talk to, it's work. You're just exhausted, and you get things, but you get with people who are kind of in the same groove with you, and you're like, wow, this makes me happy to be with you. Jesus said, I came to give you abundant life, not I came to take you off to heaven. In the Amplified, it says, greater, it's either the Amplified or the Message, it says, greater and more abundant life than you even imagine. It's like, can you imagine that you could be that happy? I'm not talking about some kind of superficial happiness where you become obnoxious or where you are out of touch with people suffering. There's a proverb that says, he that sings songs to him who is of a heavy heart is like one who takes away a coat in winter. So there's an appropriate time to cry with somebody or to hold them or whatever. But you don't have to climb down the hole with them to minister to them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I understand you're depressed. I'm going to minister to you, but I don't have to get depressed with you. I can be happy. I can tell you this. I have had a lot of unhappiness in my life. I've had a good life, but I had a lot of unhappiness. I'm not unhappy now. I'm really not. I mean, and it's not just because I came out. It's because I lived a life that I wanted to live, and not everybody wanted me to live that life, and some people got hurt in the process. I apologize. I didn't want to hurt anybody, but I got to be a steward over my own life, and not in a selfish way, but everybody deserves to be happy. Everybody deserves to be happy and real. Everybody deserves to be happy with who they are. And at a certain point, you have to say, I hope the people in my life can get this, but if they don't, I'm still going to go ahead and be happy, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Do you guys relate to that? Are you in the same place?
It takes a whole lot of suffering to get there. It's which is interesting because we're so very ignorant. We've all, as I have said time and time again, it's like there's, they say there's this evil sport. There literally is these lies that we've been polluted with, and for so long. I think of Israel being all of us, right? And I think of how Israel, they were slaves in Egypt, and Pharaoh was their taskmaster. And then when you see it symbolically, and you understand that, well, the New Testament says Pharaoh is their shame, and Egypt is their confusion, and that they're wallowing around and they're muck in the mire, and they're finally set free. And what do? They want to go back to it because we're all so miserable. I mean, we're all so miserable. We are. I'm not. But people, they'll put on the act. They'll pretend that they're happy, that they've somehow arrived. I've arrived. I know the truth. You hear it all the time. I have the answers. And the irony is these people, they're fruit. A tree is known by its fruit, and your fruit will show you. So when I see these pictures of you and Ken, and you're over here, I see happiness. When I share pictures of my family, these are happy moments because I live a happier life. Someone asked me, why do you do what you do? I do what I do because, honestly, purely selfish. I enjoy this. I'm coming here because this makes me happy. There's no greater good. I mean, honestly, I like helping people. Right. That's a great thing. But I only do it because it makes me happy. Right. And that's the truth. It's a purely, being selfless is actually being selfish, because when you're helping others, you're helping yourself.
Exactly. Right.
And that's the thing, is we're all so very blind and lost because we've come into this world and we've been just shoveled with, you have to be miserable, and you can't live your life, you can't be who you are, you can't do this, you can't do that. Good boys do this, good girls do that. My goodness.
Has this ever happened to any of you that are in the ministry? Have you ever had somebody sent to you that you had to minister to them, but you realize, I'm not ministering to them, I'm ministering to me. You end up saying to them everything to them that you need to say to yourself. And I've told young pastors this for years. When people say, sometimes I don't have material, I say, you know what you need to do? Think about, if I was going to church tonight, what would I need to hear? And go preach to yourself, and I promise you, you'll have a word for everybody. It'll always be the thing that you need to hear. My best sermons on healing have been when I had manifestations of sickness in my body. Has that ever happened with you?
It has, so over and over again. I had this lady give me books at different times in my life and ministry, and she was always just right on. The book she would give me, it would be speaking to my life. And it'd be like, this is so amazing. And not long ago, probably in the last year, she gave me a book. She mailed it to me, and she said, the Lord told me to give you this book. And she's been 100%. And I'm excited.
Right.
I needed a good book.
What was the book?
Becoming a Virgin Again.
No, she did not.
And the whole thing was about...
That's a book?
It's about, I don't know the title of it. The whole thing is about young girls who have given it up, how they can become a virgin again, and how they can protect themselves from not losing that virginity again.
And she sent this to you, why?
Because
you're a young
Lord
girl.
Told her. Okay.
And he actually did, or she actually did. Because as I was looking at the book, I thought, well, you know what? And I threw it aside and laughed, and I picked it back up. And I started reading it, and I thought, well, how ridiculous is this? And I looked at it again. And then the Spirit had me just replace the word virginity with happiness.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, it became such revelation to me that I had given up my happiness.
Yeah.
Wow.
To certain people that didn't deserve it because they didn't really care about me.
Who raped you spiritually and raped you emotionally.
And they took my happiness.
Oh my
I took the
God.
little vow and filled my name in, the little thing. There's a place for the young. It's a teenage girl book. So you fill in the thing where I'm going to be, I'll cross out a virgin again and put happy again. I'm not going to I have to set boundaries for myself.
Wow.
And not let people cross those boundaries who are trying to take my happiness, because it's a treasure that I don't need to give to just anybody that wants
And
it.
some people impregnated you with stuff that you didn't want to give birth to. This wasn't my idea, this was yours. You impregnated. Oh my God.
And now you're carrying that around for years. And nurturing
Oh,
But
wow.
it became real revelation to me, and I realized that I was not setting boundaries, and I was letting people finger me and touch me.
Thanks for joining us on In and Out with Jim Swilley.
Jack,
Well,
Hello.
we were on a track there.
Trying not to believe.
he walks that fine line.
Well, if you were looking for the line, and there it is,
Dang it,
people.
dang it, dang it.
Keep going.
I don't even like put the finger on me.
Okay, I got
What
you.
do y'all think I'm in?
The Bible says to the pure in heart, all things
Right,
are
right.
pure. All right,
Where
go
y'all
ahead.
are. Yeah. But I was allowing people to cross into. Like,
Yeah.
For instance, I don't
That's
like
very
company
powerful.
at my house unless I invite them. I don't like people knocking on my door and me opening the door and say, "Hey, we thought we'd stop by and
It's
see
a
you."
violation.
So I let them in, and I'm resentful the whole time they're there.
Right.
I mean, they have a telephone, we have a telephone, and I stopped doing that after I
No means no.
after I became a virgin again or happy again. Now people knock on the door, and I just sit there looking. I don't answer it, and I don't have to. I don't feel obligated to let you in my
Wow.
pants. My happiness is something I'm going to protect.
It is an amazing thing and a tough thing to do, especially when you have a pastor's heart, to say no. To just say, just no.
So hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
So I
so-
don't want to have to settle with you.
But if you think of it,
Sorry.
It's not going to make me happy.
If you follow that analogy, if you say yes to everybody, you are easy.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's what we think of somebody that's promiscuous.
You'll have.
Well, she doesn't know how to say no.
That's
And
right.
that's the way
Right.
for lack of a better term, whore ourselves out.
and you look at yourself
to think
that
of
way.
everybody that demands
You do.
something from us, we have to give it up. That's, I mean, it comes across crude, but
It's true.
point well taken.
That's that harlot, that
protect your
whore of
happiness.
Babylon, you know.
Or
it's like
pimping
you
yourself
you
out.
see it again and again
Yeah.
in Scripture, where at the lips of that strange woman, you know, it's like if you follow like, and I had my wife and I are happy, and you know, and the reason is because we made a decision. I think people just need to make a decision. You need to say, I'm deciding this is what I'm going to be. You speak it out and you continue to do it, and you do things selflessly, because you can't be happy if you're doing things to appease yourself. So, you know, even in a relationship, my wife's this beautiful woman, you know, if say jealousy will creep up or something, if I listen to that thought, oh, well, that guy said something and on Facebook, and and she liked that comment. Now, if I listen to that and I don't take that thought captive, that'll leave me spiraling into all of a sudden, my God, you're cheating on me. I don't want to be with you anymore. You know, and it's like the end is that hell. So you have to really take your thoughts captive. You got to guard your pants.
Guard
That's
your- guard your-
What's the
Wear a chastity belt.
lock it out.
this is taken on a very this
Guard your
episode has been
Chastity belt of
hijacked. But I think you're onto something. Was it the story of Rahab? What was the thing about where they go? It's something in the scripture says they went into the harlot's house, but they come out and they don't call her the harlot anymore. It was like her virginity had been restored. What Old Testament story am I thinking of there? Because they refer to her as the woman leader instead of the harlot.
Was it when the spies went in?
Oh, it's
The
Ruth.
spies were
Right.
spying out
Walls come
Jericho.
down.
I know
Was it
because I
Ruth?
remember hearing a great
Yeah.
sermon about it one time, that at one point she was called the harlot, but
Yeah.
then she
Yeah, she was the
wasn't.
I think it's Ruth.
Is that what it
Ruth?
was?
think
And then
Ruth.
she's restored. I mean, I know we're
Yeah.
laughing about it, but that's
Well, it says she was
that's
a Moabite.
very
Made
to that.
truthful about it.
Said Ruth was a Moabite, but after she went into Boaz
Right.
and read his feet, she was no longer referred to again as Ruth the Moabite,
Well, and when you think about what you signed up for,
which
when
is
you went
flesh,
into
which means
ministry.
flesh.
You know, there were parts of the ministry that I loved and I was
I've
excited about,
understood.
and then what it became was not at all what I signed up for. Like this isn't. I wanted to help people. I didn't want to try to figure out how to make payroll twice a month.
Yeah.
This, but it took on a life of its own. The tail began to wag the dog, and suddenly I'm doing part. And honestly, the reason I have Metron now, and the reason it's so scaled down, is now I just do the parts of ministry that make me happy.
Right.
When people say, "Don't you want more people?"
That's
I'm like, "Well,
wonderful.
more people represent more drama, so yes and no."
Either way.
Yeah, well, in ministry, we tend to put on that mask of, and maybe it's not just in ministry, it's in politics and in entertainment and in every aspect of life, but specifically ministry, we put on a mask of this happy thing. We're like, hey, praise the Lord,
Right, there you
guys,
go.
and then inside we're like, I don't know if I want to be here anymore. I don't even do I have a purpose? And there's real things that we question ourselves with, and it's a scary thing when you're sitting across the room from someone
Right.
who's asking you the answer to their life, and you're like, you want to tell them sometimes, dude, there's no hope. Like I'm freaking out.
Right.
And then when you see and of course, come to your senses and you realize that God is God. But
Right.
when you see someone like Robin Williams and you say, God, somebody that brought
Exactly.
so much happiness to the world, and then couldn't make himself happy, it's like,
He was hiding.
wow, what is that
How in the
root,
wor-
and how can we get to that?
Absolutely.
Because that made me feel a little bit in despair, because it was just like, God,
If
he's
Robin
not
Williams
happy.
is that depressed,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. Well, I can say this with you sitting here because you were there when it happened, but a lot of people think I came out and lost the church. That's not what happened. I mean, I lost a lot of people, but we still had a very viable congregation 10 minutes away from where we were. Still probably the largest church in Newton County. And we're about to buy that building. The guy had worked out a way that we could have bought it. And I was thinking, well, when am I going to have an opportunity like this again? And everybody could tell I wasn't really happy about it, but I'm like, well, this is what we're going to do. And one day we had this sort of come to Jesus moment where everybody got really real. And I can't remember if it was your mom or your brother. It might have been you, but somebody asked me, it might have been Debbie. She said, what do you really want? Do you want to buy this building and still pastor in Covington? And all of a sudden, just out of me just came, no, I don't want to ever drive back here again. I'm only here to prove a point that I'm still in the ministry. I haven't lost everything. I don't like
all
it here.
ego.
I don't want to
It's
buy
ego.
this building. I don't like it here. I don't like having to maintain a staff. I don't want to do it. I don't like it. I'm unhappy. I'm having vertigo and high blood pressure and all these things. And, it's like I came out, but I didn't come out fully because I'm still not really doing what I want to do. And And Debbie looked at me, because this affected her livelihood, because that was her job. She looked at me, she said, you know what? Life's too short.
Yeah.
You need to do what makes you happy.
Awesome.
And she said, what makes you happy? I said, honestly, to be in my neighborhood where I live, going to the theater that's my favorite in town, having people that just really care about what I want to talk about. I don't want to, I've done productions for years. We had awesome choirs and praise teams and musicians, and you can go online and see those. Nobody did it better than us. But it wasn't making me happy. And now I think I just do the part of the ministry that I like. Right. And you can say, well, that's kind of selfish, isn't it? No, I believe if I'm not a steward over my happiness, I don't really have anything to give you. Because I know what it's like to minister out of bitterness and to minister out of anger or whatever, and you don't have the goods for the people. You can vent and you can spew all over them, but after a while, they're not going to be nourished. Right. And so, even for you guys, because two of my sons, you and your brother were on staff, and they were both like, Dad, do what makes you happy. I remember I took Judah and Jonah out because it was going to affect them. It means y'all got to go look for a job. Right. And so I'm sitting there and I said, this is what I want to do. I told them the whole thing, and they both just stared at me for a minute, and I thought, well, what do you think? And Jonah said, well, I think this is the smartest thing you've ever done. I said, oh, really? He said, and I want you to take all those collars and I want you to burn them right now. Which I haven't done that. But,
I think, if no represents a red light and yes represents a green light, red lights are just as important as green lights when you're navigating to your destination. Yeah. Right. And if your destination is happiness, sometimes you have to be able to say, no, I'm not going down that road. Right.
And it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means that was them, and it was fine.
And it helps you figure it out because you narrow it down. No, yes.
Some of the most powerful words that Jesus ever said, every time I read them, it just flies off the page. He says, let your yes be yes, and your no be no. In other words, I'm sorry, I'm pounding on the table. Don't pound on this table because it hits the mic. Sorry. To see if the tech team is still awake. Just to say, you don't need to qualify it. You don't need to explain it. Just you should live so truthfully with such integrity that if you ask me to do something and I say no, then you trust me enough that I don't have to explain it to you.
That's it.
Say, no, I don't want to do that. Doesn't mean you're not a valid person. It just means that's not where I'm at right now.
Right.
It's just, I guess out of everything that I dealt with, the hardest thing for me to overcome was people pleasing. And to me, happiness is like the not equals people pleasing.
Yeah.
You can't have both. And you think it's just so seductive and such a
it feels good to please people.
To think that will bring you happiness.
Right.
But it doesn't.
It's a bottomless pit. Because the more you try it, then you find, well, now they're not happy about this. Yeah.
And when people expect that out of you, once you've been that way for so long, to all of a sudden say no takes a lot of backbone, but that's what will bring you true happiness.
Right.
So that, to me, that's what it is. Because I was looking for like a 12-step program to overcome people pleasing. Because it was so hard.
It's tricky territory because you have to have people in your life, and everybody wants to be loved. That's not a negative thing. Everybody wants to be approved of. That's not a bad thing. When does it cross over and become codependence, or I need you to validate me? I need you to, think I'm okay. Because it really, I know it's cliche, but it really comes down to I have to know I'm okay first. I mean,
not at your own expense of yourself.
Yes, it comes from the inside out.
I believe you can. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
I believe that you can. I believe you can literally make an environment, change an environment. It's an infectious thing, and I did this in my own home where I believe that if things weren't right with, say, me and my wife when we first got married, well, then what I need to do is, because what I want is I want to be loved so dearly, and I want to love like I've never loved before. And so that was my intention, and that's what I did. And so by creating that environment, it becomes, so that my children are happy. And, so when I see any kind of dis-ease in the house, I realize, well, there's something going on. So what I need to do is just like you said, you got to sow the good stuff into people, and not and servant. We're called to be the master of the house, but to be the master, you have to be the servant and the servant isn't greater than the master. So, and the servant really has no say. So, it's like, I'm going to put out here, and if you don't like what I don't get to say, oh, I'm sorry, master, but zip it. I just serve. And I realize that's I've learned that there's a lot of joy that comes in with, if you don't like who I am, that's okay, because I get it. You're just not there yet, and it's all right. I can be happy with me, and if I'm happy with me, ultimately that will translate and things will change. Our words have power. You just have to speak it. You have to speak it.
We're nearly out of time, but what you got, Doc?
Well, everything is conducive to his environment. That's why the first thing we need to always be careful and watch what we're putting around us is the environment.
Yes.
I tell people, go in the woods and get you 2 oak saplings, oaks. Plant one in the woods, back in the woods, and plant one in your front yard. And go back 5 years and see which one's the biggest. The one that's planted back with this environment grows.
Really?
So what is the environment? Everything is conducive to the environment.
Yeah.
We used to have this thing, Fresh and I, when we started this positive thing about 8 years ago, that if she ever heard me say a negative, she would call me on it, replace it with 3 positives.
That's good.
And I couldn't argue with her. And I said, I wasn't, yes, you were. That's what came, you might not think you were, but that's the energy you put out.
Right.
Yeah.
So I quit questioning her, and I started replacing it with positiveness around my environment, and then I adapt to it. When Peter in Acts 12 was delivered from the prison, and it says this, when he got to the gates of the city opened up, and Peter says, now I know for surety that the Lord has sent his angel and delivered me from all the expectations of the Jews.
Wow.
The Jews is who he was sent to help for.
Wow.
You got to be delivered from the expectation of people you've been sent to help.
And to touch on that, sometimes the worst environment for you is in the church.
Yeah.
And you need to be
Oh,
delivered.
yeah.
Come on,
You
Judy,
need to be
that's
delivered
it.
from those, because what it does is
You got it, Judy.
and not all church, but we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You're brought down to this level. I read just 2 nights ago on this blog, somebody was going in on Joel Osteen. Man, God bless Joel Osteen. But they were going in, and there was, I can't believe this false prophet is preaching the gospel of feel good and love people. And it's like they hate it. They hate it. Which is funny, because gospel means good news. The good news of feel good. But you're right, to be delivered from that environment. And sometimes, unfortunately, it is church, and you got to get your head out of there and get into God.
The thing is, you have to deliver yourself from that, because it wasn't till about 5 years ago when Wayne and I got married, I was trying to so please everybody. And when I resigned my church, there was such a relief off of me, because at that point, I didn't have to please them anymore.
Sure.
I was able to come out and be who I was. And it wasn't till I walked into the Biltmore. I don't want to say it was audible, but Bishop was up speaking, and I can't tell you anything he spoke that night, because it was just me and God at that point. But at that point, I saw myself as God saw me. And that was as if I was perfect.
That's it.
Because you are.
Because I am.
Absolutely.
And that's the way he sees the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And so when I saw
good
that,
stuff. Good stuff. Well, I am happy that we had this time together. A little overtime, but it was absolutely worth it. Thanks for joining us on this edition of In the Now with Jim Swilley. See you next time.
How are I feeling?